about that. Okay, so welcome everyone to the first session that we have for the Global Leaders of Change program. And our facilitator for today is Mr. Prince Ampofo. Mr. Prince Ampofo is a leadership coach, an author, and a public speaker. Recently, he has been recognized as one of the 50 most influential young Ghanaians in 2021. He is also the program coordinator for Data Bank Foundation, and he's the executive director for Palm Knowledge Center. Mr. Prince is a lifetime optimist, lifelong learner, and also a Christian. And anything that has to do with leadership, he loves and lives by it. He also loves social work and loves to volunteer. So without much ado, please, let's welcome my boss, Mr. Prince Ampofo. And Mr. Prince, personally, I want to say a very big thank you for the honor done me, and also for dedicating your time to speak to the young ones, including myself, so that we can learn from you. Thank you so much. And please, the stage is yours. Thank you.
And thank you, Ernest. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm very happy that you have put this together as a means for all of us to connect to what I consider as really the reason for living, which is leadership. And I must also congratulate everyone who is on this call. It's really worth the investment made. Mary, Madeline, I see iPhone, I see Benjamin, Miriam, Florence, Phoebe. This is one of the greatest things you can do personally in terms of wanting to move from where you are to the next. And so, and I also, perhaps it's a good time to say congratulations to Ernest yourself for charting this path. You know, you and I, we've spoken several times over leadership and these things. And in a year like 2022, with all that is happening, it's a good time to say congratulations to you. Well done on this initiative.
Thank you, boss. I'm honored.
So I'm going to share my screen, and then we will run through the presentation. But it will be great to also sort of pick the thoughts of a few of us here, what you are looking to learn from this experience. If there's anyone who just wants to share why you have taken this step. Florence, do you want to start?
Hi, Prince.
Sorry
hello.
for picking on you.
No, this is Phoebe.
Phoebe. Okay.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you to Ernest as well. For me, I'm looking forward to coming out of a shell, which I feel I have been in so much, because I feel that I yearn to lead. I find myself almost always in leadership positions, places that I do not, want to go myself, but some way, somehow, in the end, I always end up there. And I feel that probably the skills that are needed, I don't really have them. So this is an opportunity for me to, humble myself and learn at the feet of great people coming in. So I'm looking forward to just learn what it takes to be an effective leader. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Phoebe. In fact, we are all on here. I guess we are all students to this subject, to be fair. Thank you so much for having taken this step. Anybody else who wants to share?
Yeah, this Benjamin here, please.
Hi, Benjamin. Please go ahead.
Yeah. For me, taking up this step is something good for me. I really wanted, like Phoebe said earlier on, I think I share the similar story. I always find myself in situations whereby sometimes my actions and everything proves like maybe I want the betterment of everybody. Naturally, I'm a team
Benjamin?
player.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm a team player, and people around me, I like everybody to progress and everybody to rise to top. So normally when I find myself in space, I easily get singled out. Some find it intimidating. Maybe some feel like, okay, this guy has guts, or maybe he's too this, he's too that. He's intimidating. But I think there's a positive to it, because at the end of the day, I want everyone to feel okay.
Right.
I don't want everyone to feel belittled or feel awful or something. I feel like you should try and give hope and life to people, regardless of their background or whatever. So sometimes I find myself in such spaces where it happens that way. So me signing on to this thing, I felt it was a good thing for me to maybe polish my skill. Maybe I overdo things. I'm somebody that I can just do things without even thinking about the consequences. I maybe just let it slide. Like if you feel like you want to intimidate me, so maybe let me just attach that professionalism to it, shape it very well to come out as a better leader. Not to say I'm not a better leader, but I want to learn more, build myself, and of course, get to know people, network. It goes a long way in, pushing you to the top in terms of a lot of opportunity job. Yeah. So basically, that is it.
Okay. Thank you, Benjamin. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Or do we?
Yeah, hello, this is Florence.
Hi, Florence.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. So as my colleague said, I'm also here to learn, actually, to better my leadership skills and better myself, and also impact lives. So I'm here to learn and then impact lives. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Thank you too. Thank you, Florence. And do I take it as done, or anyone who wants to share?
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm Mary Magdalene.
Hi, Mary. Oh, Mary Magdalene, it looks like your network is not too strong. Okay.
As you have said, I am also in the same vein to say that I want to acquire good leadership skills to better myself and also to influence others.
Okay, so Mary Madeleine, I will encourage that if you can put it as maybe a text in the chat box, the feedback is not too. So you can put your feedback in the or what you are trying to say in the chat box.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Yes. Please go ahead.
Hello.
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 Yes. Kindly introduce yourself.
Please. I'm Nilanti.
Hi, Neil.
Yes, I'm Nilanti. Yes. Yeah, I'm taking part of this course because I would want to impact the lives of people around me, improve upon my leadership skills, and then be able to manage situations wherever I find myself. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for the level of engagement. So we'll just jump in to what the subject really has for us. And I would just want to quickly let you know why I'm just so passionate about leadership and all that. I've done a lot of programs in terms of leadership development, young people here and there, throughout the whole country, every region. This is something I've done for so long. It's like from when I was in the tertiary undergrads. And when I got to level 300, I just told everybody that I have graduated myself. And that's because one of the strong beliefs I have is that you have to sort of arrive in your future before you get there. It's like you have to always look like your next level. So in level 300, I had to do things more like a 400. And in 400, I just assumed that I have graduated. And what I realized on this journey of trying to make impact, moving here and there, speaking to people at some point, even beyond the country, trying to engage just so that at least you in your mind, you think that you are making such a difference in their lives. And people begin to point fingers at you and they call you the leader. But what I began to understand is how important it is the subject of leadership in itself. It's like we better believe leading. In fact, I have come to agree with myself that yes, it is very true that God's most important creation are human beings, but I don't think they are just human beings, but they are leaders. And so when you check the story of the Bible, if you're religious, you realize that it's like almost every God story is a leadership story. It's always a point where somebody has to move from just being a follower into a space that is seated on the word influence. So it's like the power of influence, being able to move or make things happen, I guess for me becomes the core of leadership. And you see, I mean, influence can sound like a very great word until you see these pictures. I'm sure when you saw the Dr. UN case in Ghana a few this was just about a year, 2 or 3 years. Please, just to pick your thoughts, when you heard about the Dr. UN case, what was going through your mind? Anybody who wants to?
Okay, hi. So this is Phoebe.
Hi, Phoebe.
Yes. So when I saw it, at first I didn't doubt it because it looked so real. And this is someone we don't. I think someone muted me. Sorry.
Maybe sorry.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so I was saying that this is someone all of a sudden had come onto the scene, and everyone was wondering, oh my God, who is this guy? Who is this guy? Who is this guy? And what are all these awards for? So he actually sold it. I think so far he is the perfect con artist that Ghana has ever had. And he actually sold himself so much that we all believed him. He took us for a ride. He took us from the beginning right through to the end until we all discovered his con and realized that, oh my God, we were all scammed. Yes.
Thank you for sharing, Phoebe. And anybody else? When you saw the story, what was going through your mind? Anybody who wants to share?
Yeah, Benjamin here, please.
Yes, Ben.
Honestly, when I saw the story, I was wondering, what was running through my mind is how could, it looks so believable, like it looks so real with the way he went about everything, how he rented the whole place and everything. And people who were in the top positions in terms of creative art and everything, he was able to, even the judicial service and everything, he was able to woo all of them and gather them, bring them together and award them. And I was wondering, what was running through my mind was, how didn't this how come they didn't believe the whole thing? Like, how come they believed it so simple? Sorry. And what made them believe this guy? Because, I'm somebody that I really am particular about human behavior, your mannerism, your antics, how you react. So when I speak to you for the first time, I'll know if you are genuine or not. So with these people that feel they are in the top ranks, the likes of, even when you go to the music industry, Sarkodie, even I think the Peace Council presenters, Bellamundi, I was wondering, I was like, these people, they always think they know everything, but how come this guy was able to lead all of them?
Right.
I was just wondering that how come they didn't believe this guy. So basically, that was it. I was just
yeah. So I'm just trying to bring our mind to the word influence, and you see how sort of powerful this word can be. It's like everything in this life revolves around this word. In fact, if you are going to be successful, whatever definition you call your success, you are going to have to know how to do this. This is for the Christian who believes in Jesus. This is for the Muslim who believes in Muhammad. This is for the child who believes in giving, freedom to young people. This is for the adult who believes that young people must be controlled. This is for politicians who believe that, power must be given to them. This is for the young person who is out there trying to make an idea work or trying to look for a job. And for me, when I saw this story, the first thing that came to my mind was perception. Some way, somehow, how people perceive you can be the reason why you can command almost anyone at all to buy your dream. And for this Dr. Ewan, at least they bought his dream. It didn't matter how he looked. Some people seem to have been convinced that, yes, he has a product selling that they were willing to buy. And I think that for leaders, it was a good story, of course, in a bad sense, but it was a good story and a good learning for all of us to now begin to really understand the power of influence and the power of even leadership. Because it's like, whatever is going to happen around this world will need people. And if Dr. Ewan has been able to put people in a room to believe what he is carrying, I'm sure that some of us on this call, you even have greater causes that you are hoping and trying to get people to believe in. But the Dr. Ewan story should even encourage you the more. But for me, I always would like to come from a point of my personal sort of definition for leadership. I know there are so many of them out there. I think that when we say somebody is a leader, two things are happening. One is that the person is gladly making people do what they don't necessarily want to do. But I think there's a second part that even brings more responsibility to leadership. That is the fact that the people who are gladly doing are just not doing for doing sake. But at the end of the goal or at the end of the journey, those people must find themselves. So that when I pick 2 people, 3 people, and I say, okay, so I am the leader, or they put me in charge of a group, what I'm going to do is to take the group on a journey. But at the end of that journey, people must be glad they had been on that journey. Or people must be glad to do what they may not even like. So someone will say, oh, but me, I don't like speaking in public, but because you are leading and you're saying, oh, try it, you try it for the first time, they will do it. But the most important part of leadership for me is that these people who follow must find themselves. It's like people must work with leaders, walk away better. People must do things for leaders and walk away with a certain awareness that comes to them, so that every leader can point to the change that they have made in people's lives. So is it strange that, for example, we can have a person called Jesus point to Peter and say that, well, because Peter walked with me, he's doing great things. It is not surprising. Most of the time I look at the Ayew brothers, and even though, well, I'm not a football fan and I've not really watched too many matches with Abid Pele and all that, but I think he did a very great work. I mean, to be able to trace back, every person working on a high level should be able to trace back to a leader who appeared in their lives at some point. And I think that is the burden of leadership, that you are not just making people do activities. Oh, let's do this. Oh, let's do that together. No. As people go through those activities, your point is that you are taking them to their true selves, so that when they begin to look back, they can see that, wow, they have traveled a journey where their lives have changed. And I think this is even become a bit problematic when you begin to think about leadership around the world and how it's like people are just using people without necessarily thinking about how those people also find themselves. So my first challenge to everyone on this call is that if really, as soon as you call yourself a leader, it means that people must be safe to travel with you. Why? At the end of that journey, they find themselves. They realize, so they could do this and they never knew. They realize, wow, so I could actually do this, but it was when I worked with you. And those stories point to really the leadership capacity or capability you carry. And so for me, I think the ultimate goal, the first function of a leader is to multiply themselves. It's like, that's your first function. Some way, somehow, there must be a transference of what you carry, who you are, to the people who follow you. And this does not take away the responsibility of you even change in all. I mean, I guess it even pushes you more to the wall, because I think that even though the function is to multiply self, the first focus of leadership really is you. It's like people must look at you and see what you are trying to say in you. It doesn't matter the examples you use. It doesn't matter the quotes you have put on there. It's not really about the Nelson Mandela you're talking about. People are looking at you as a leader. And like we said, perception is powerful. So how you are perceived becomes a reason why people would rather work with you or not. So yeah, I put this here just as a means to again engage a little. I want, if you have a story, any of us to share about a point where maybe you were considering or you were doing something and you realized that even though you were trying to help your team, it's like they were looking at you to make the step first. If you have any example like that, maybe you want to share with everyone here. Hi, Phoebe, please go ahead.
Okay. So recently, I think about a few months ago, in about April, yes. First of all, I was somewhere, and then this was in October of last year. My boss calls me and says, "Oh, Phoebe, we have a conference coming up, and I want you to handle everything." And I go like, what? So this is me. I've never planned a conference from start to finish before. And he just says, just get a team, draw the budgets, let me know, do everything, just let me know. I want you to handle it. So I asked him on the side, later on, I asked him, please, why did you choose me to? They are actually they are better people. They are faculty members over there. And this is me. I'm in my small corner, I'm a student and trying to focus on my studies and work a lot. And then he goes like, because I know you can do it. Okay, so fast forward in April, this was a regional conference, so it had guests coming from sub-regions in some in Africa. Okay. And then this was me. I got my team members, and everyone is looking at me. Okay, Phoebe, so what do we do? I go like, you people are the experts. You people have done it before, and I have just come. I was actually downplaying my abilities because everyone on the team had been part of something similar before.
Right.
Okay. But I wasn't part of it. So this was my first time leading a team of people who have been part of it before. Okay. So every time I try to, brainstorm and, I would, okay, can we do it this way? I throw it back to them and they end up throwing it back to me that, okay, you are the leader. What should we do? So this is me. I'm put in a tight spot where, okay, so what do I do? Plans and things like that. One incident which happened was a few of our guests missed their flights.
Okay.
And now they had trouble with immigration coming to Ghana, and they call me and they go like, Phoebe, the Nigeria team and then the Mali team have not been able to get here. Our representative at Kotoka said they didn't come and everything. So I didn't know what to do. I was frantic, I was scared, and then we tried as much as possible. But in the end, I think they would have known what to do, but everyone kept coming back to me, and this is, I'm a novice, but so some way somehow I made a few calls because I would say I have some friends who know friends in high places. Okay. And then some way somehow when we had to reschedule flights and cost and everything involved, but I said, well, it was necessary. the necessary things they had to do. But once they come in, this friend in high place will help them through immigration and things.
Okay, so that's more like, so it's more like people, even though you were considering yourself as someone, a novice, someone who is inexperienced, and yet people were looking to you.
Yes.
It's like you,
yes.
Exactly. So it's like, that's just the point I'm trying to make here, that it doesn't matter how nice even this PowerPoint may look. The most important is that it's not what the person is saying, but what the person is doing. The person becomes more like the model before the people, wanting to know and understand what this leadership is about. And so even though the goal really is to make sure that at the end of the day, you are not just using people for activity. They must find themselves, but understand that you become their first focus. And I want to talk about, usually I have 3 bets that I talk about in terms of leadership personality, unfortunately in Africa. And the first one is the ostrich, and how it's like you can see how big the ostrich is. I'm not even surprised that Phoebe is saying, oh, by me, I even considered myself a novice. At least they are the experienced people. It's like these days, it's easier to see people who look very big and audacious. I mean, everything about them should let you know that, no, these people are special. They are the people who should be leading. And yet when you attempt to put them in leadership positions, they disappoint. It's like the ostrich, so big and walks so majestically. Usually when you see the ostrich and even how it will run, you'd assume that with this speed, it must just jump into the sky and fly. And yet it runs and keeps running at a very top speed, the fastest bird, and then all of a sudden it halts, it stops. And for me, we see a lot of people like that on the continent who should be flying. And yet all they do is that they run on top speed and they don't move much. And most of the time we see them around us. They seem to have potential, and yet they disappoint when they are in leadership positions. There are second groups of people who are like the peacock. The peacock, they are the people who would usually look very nice. They dress very well. Usually they are just so elegant to see. Sometimes you look like fine gentlemen, and it's like their outlook must be the reason why you want them in leadership. And yet as soon as you put them there, again, they disappoint. And just to again point that it's like these people are generally most of the time with us, friends who complain about so many things, and yet they don't even want to, touch. They don't want the dirt on themselves. No. What they know how to do best is to complain and to dress well. Those are the peacocks. And then we have the eagles. And of course, I know anybody in this room, I know by now you've read books about how the eagle does that and this. So I won't go into in depth, but just to let you know how much a difference the eagle makes. And that's the kind of leadership people on this call, I guess we are trying to aim at, where we become like the eagle, strong, firm, tenacious, and being able to move our people where they really belong. But I want to talk about this triangle, which these days I teach a lot, because I realize that in Africa, it's like we are already late on a lot of things, and yet we seem to be the most comfortable people. The leadership triangle sort of points, and just like you see, it's like when people are living their normal life. So when people are doing the usual, usually they have their own rights. They sort of strive for convenience. They can make excuses for whatever. It's like, and they are themselves. So it's easier for them to do things the way they want to get them done. But as you climb up the triangle, the higher you go up in leadership, the more you lose these things. It's like all of a sudden you don't have a right to hold on to your rights anymore. All of a sudden you don't have the right to just look for your convenience anymore. You lose the right to have excuses. You lose the right of your independent will. It's like you are moving to a place of responsibility where it will behove on you the need for sacrifice, the need for service, the need for duty. And I'll tell you an interesting story that happened when I was in the university. I've always taken, I mean, even if you put a committee of 2 people and you make me one of the 2, you make me the committee chairman, you can be sure I would usually respond as if I'm working for 1,000 people. And so I remember I was appointed a committee of a dinner a few days to my graduating. And then we were in a committee meeting. The next day we were writing our final paper. And even though right after the final paper, we were going to have the dinner, the party. So as I sat with my committee members and we were talking about what we need to do, blah, 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 there was a lady who was sitting there who then began to sort of complain and say, Prince, but we have a paper to write. We need to go and study. And I kept telling her, no, we can't go. We have been appointed by the people and they have given us a mandate. The reason when we accepted the mandate, we lost our right to want to be convenient, to do things that we must finish this before we go. And I mean, it became a very heated argument. She had to call people in. I was there when her friends kept calling me. I'll pick the phone and somebody would just shout at me, Prince, are you the one paying her fees? What are you talking about? What is a committee meeting? When the lady, she has a paper tomorrow, what do you mean by that? Blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, I'll just tell them, I am the chairman of this meeting and nobody is moving. But, and just for your information, up till today, the lady does not speak to me. And just because I was firm on my grounds that no, once responsibility has been laid on us, we have lost our rights to just our own independence. It's like you have to, as soon as you climb up the leadership ladder, you can be certain that you are moving into a space where you are not yourself. You are not of yourself anymore. And it is a place to begin when, especially, we are going to be talking about some of the soft skills leaders should have. At least 2 things that I want you to keep in mind. One is that leadership is not just activity. At the end of the day, your people must find themselves. And 2 is that you lose your right as you go up higher on the leadership ladder. It is no more about you, it's about the people. In most cases, it will then require that you live beyond yourself. So maybe before we come to this, I just want to find out, I know you may know some of these things. When you begin to think about soft skills and leaders, what do you think are some of the skills that you would rather a leader would have? Anybody who wants to share?
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, Benjamin here, please.
Hi, Ben, please go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I feel like the very first thing you should look out for a leader, or for a leader, very first quality a leader must possess. That is very important to me. On your list, that should be like the very first. You have to be, you must be selfless. You must be selfless.
Okay.
That's
okay.
very important to me.
All right. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Phoebe, I saw your hand up. If you want to, please go ahead.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think empathy. Because you're going to be dealing with so many people, and you need to, at least sometimes you need to be able to relate to the people in order to be able to redress or address certain issues. So
okay,
I think it's one of the skills a leader needs.
All right, thank you. Lawrence.
Yeah, hello.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so the first and foremost thing is you must be honest. Honest with yourself and with others. I think that will be the first one.
For you. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you. Anybody else who wants to share? It's true, these things you're talking about are so important when it comes to the person being a leader.
Yes. This is Magdalene.
Hi,
You
Magdalene.
must be a good communicator.
Okay, you must be able to communicate. That's true. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I put together a few things, which definitely include some of these things you have shared. So maybe we'll skip this because of time. But I think that one of the most important things that, for example, when you are considering a leader in soft skills, you need to is a need, and if I can say a must, is self-awareness. The being able to know who you are. You see, from when you come to know who you are, it is easier for you to then begin to shift things around your personality, as in what you have to be doing or what you need to do more of or less of. And I think that if we can put ignorance in categories, I think that the biggest ignorance we all have is the ignorance of ourselves. We don't know who we are. Sometimes it looks like we do until other people tell us who we are. And so the study of self-awareness becomes extremely important. It's like there are people who, call any leader, especially in Africa, even when you call every political leader and you try to speak to them, there are some people who say Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was the best leader Ghana had gotten. And in fact, if you were putting Dr. Kwame Nkrumah on a panel to find out, he will let you know, oh, he really had good intentions. This was what he was trying to achieve. And yet to the people, they were seeing something different. So it's like who you are can be totally different from who you think you are. And the study of yourself and really to understand who you are becomes extremely important. Most of the time, when I'm even doing coaching, trying to, I'm in any leadership workshop, I usually would like to do more like a self-awareness test. I should have brought one in here. Maybe on another day, we should be able to, where you then begin to point or you begin to find out what your natural tendencies will be. So we know of the personality types, we know of the sanguine, we know of the melancholy, we know of these days, there are so many different types of personality tests that have come. It is great for you to make time to actually go through one to know who you are. It is what will teach you whether you are even very empathetic or not. It is what will teach you whether maybe you are too soft. You need to be a little firm. It is what will point you to some of these things. And for me, what once in a while I do is maybe do a Google form and then input a few things on there. And then I share this form with my friends and people who are not afraid to speak the truth to me. And even though I know that in Africa, it's not easy for people to critique. And so it is possible you can still get people just trying to be nice, but at least it's an attempt to really know who I am from their point of view. What do you think about when you see me? Is there anything that I would rather be doing more? Is there something you wish that I'll be doing less of? It's a good sort of test that you want to be doing in your circles to find out who you really are. Please, at this point, as we are going, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. So the question of who am I becomes extremely important. I think the more you get to know who you are, lies the power that you can really exhibit as a person. The second, for me, in terms of the soft skill, is that a leader, it doesn't matter whether the person is the one leading the team, whether it is positional leadership or whether it is personal leadership, your own life. A leader just has to be visionary. There has to be a mental picture that is dragging the leader along. It's like something needs to become a pull on your soul. And for most people that we even look at and say they are outstanding leaders, we can see them exhibit this in extraordinary ways. It can be that the person is more like maybe a CEO, is just a positional leader, but you can see the person is totally sold to a vision. that becomes the drawing. So much so that even when the person is tired, the vision does not allow the person to sleep. The vision becomes the reason why the person cannot relax. And in most cases, when what you are doing, for everyone on this call, if the people around you are able to ask you, but this thing that you are doing, why? Are they going to pay you? Or this thing that you are doing, why are you trying to change the country? If you are getting questions like that, believe me, you are showing signs of being very visionary. Because visionary makes you, is the deep sense of conviction that makes you almost unstoppable at what you are trying to stretch for to do. And it's a skill that we need to sort of cultivate, where you begin to believe, you become the only believer of where you are driving to. And the believer, the first one, you become a fan to you on whatever journey that you are trying to take. How do you become visionary? What I come to realize is that most of the time when you are in an environment of people who are visionary, it has a way of just rubbing on you. Yes, you can read a book. Yes, you can. People have other ways. People say, okay, if you take some reflective moments and all that, it's true. But from experience, what I see is that the more you spend time in an environment where you have people who are visionary, it's like what they are doing is something common, and yet they seem to be totally sold to the thing. It's like they will not let anything stop them. You begin to pick up that you begin to also pick up that character, that skill. It begins to rub on you. You see the possibilities of what can happen when a person is at that level. And by that means, it makes it easier for you to also go that direction. Being visionary is extremely important. And I guess it has everything to do also with knowing yourself. Because the more you begin to know yourself, the more you begin to know what perhaps at some point in your life you want to call your vision. The next one, please, if you have any questions, also feel free to please make contributions. The next one is being able to build teams. Some way, somehow, I've heard people who say, oh, I necessarily, okay, influence the people. Like, why do I even need a team? Hey, everyone on this call would agree with me. You would agree with me that if there are any goals, if there's any vision that is worth fighting for in this world, you will need people. It's like non-negotiable. It doesn't matter how nice you are, you would need people. And especially in a world where today, it's like we can all sit at home and even have a call like this, makes it much more critical, the need for people. And sometimes they are across boundaries. Like today, the boundaries in the world are fading away. You can be in a WhatsApp group with people from almost every country in the world, and it's just in a WhatsApp group, no boundaries. The need for building teams become extremely important. So you have to be intentional about trying to learn how to lead teams. So for me, usually when I'm helping somebody build their leadership capacity, there's a point where I tell them, hey, go and make 2 more friends and bring them for something we are doing. Or go and then make friends. It looked like almost impossible, but it works. When I was in the university, I used to work with NGOs across the country, or at least one of the NGOs. And then one of my main goals was to build relationships because we're doing conferences from one university to the other. So I'll leave campus and then just travel. Sometimes maybe I'm in University of Cape Coast, I'll move to KNUST. I just enter campus and I'm supposed to make friends. I'm just supposed to come up with a list of about 20 people who say they want to volunteer on a project we are doing. From there, I'll move to maybe Kumasi Pole, the technical university, to do the same. You enter, you don't know anybody, but you must make friends and they must become friends enough to want to help you do what you want to do. And interestingly, we were able to quickly just break barriers between people. Sometimes we become so close to people, and then they begin to help us to do the conferences we do. And I always say that when I wrote my first book on leadership, A Leader at Last, it didn't take me too long to sell, because as soon as I put the flyer on Facebook, the friends I had made all around the country, people started sending me messages in my inbox. Prince, I want to sell for you. I want to sell for you. And believe me, in a short while, their books were sold out. So teamwork becomes extremely important. Why? One of the reasons is that, you see, being visionary, knowing who you are, will give you a sense of vision. But being visionary, you will be certain that your vision will be bigger than you. If your vision is your size, I dare say that you have not found that vision yet. The vision that as a leader you are drawing people to most of the time, almost every time, will be bigger than you. It will be vision that will require people. And I always say that if Jesus Christ had to work with 12 people, please, you can work the math on how many people perhaps you need to work with. The next one, just like, was it Florence who mentioned it, communication. Some way, somehow, your language must change as a leader. Some way, somehow. Yes, people say, oh, but me, that is how I talk. Yes, you can be saying that when you are at the back of the room, but in front of the room, some way, somehow, your language must change. It is no more about you. You cannot be using the word me. You have lost that right. Why? You are in leadership. What about anybody who wants to just live leadership as an everyday life? Your language changes. You become a we person. Oh, we are building this together. We are going here together. Some ways, that language must change. And I put out a few things that I thought you must know how to listen. You must act. It's like most of the time we care more about how we deliver, how we speak, and it's true. But what I'm saying is that one of the most important things as a leader is how you also get to listen. Understand that listening is much more difficult a communication tool, so that you can become very intentional about listening. How do you listen well? Most of the time, to be able to listen well is to listen documenting. It's either you are recording, it's either you are writing the notes, it's either you are repeating to the person, okay, so by what you mean, you actually mean that this, just so that you can get clarity. Listening is extremely important on the part of the leader. You see, it is when a person has understood how important listening is, it's when they begin to even understand things like empathy, how you can listen, taking the position of the person. And listening requires also listening beyond what is being said. There are a lot of things that can come unspoken. All right, Phoebe, you can go ahead.
Okay, I have a brief question. So, taking the situation that is happening in our country right now, would you say that the people who are leading us are not good leaders? With these tips that you have displayed on the screen, would you intend to say that they are not good leaders?
Okay, so for me to be able to say that, I need to find a way to measure what is happening. Like we were saying even in the beginning, that you see, sometimes what you think you are doing, the power of perception, you can be doing the right thing that everybody thinks is wrong. And so some way, somehow, I must be able to quantify what they are doing against what is being expected of them, to be able to say whether they are bad or good. I don't know if that makes sense. And maybe I should use for example, I was appointed to head a church just last year. In fact, I was ordained just a few months back, maybe 2. And as soon as I was appointed into the church, the first thing I realized was that, okay, so who are the leaders? And then I began to do, I noticed that, okay, there's nothing to measure what we are doing in here. So the reason why there's nothing to measure is because no expectations have been set for leadership. And so what I began to do was then to pick a few people, 1-2 people, to be administrators for the church. Now, the next level was then to begin to train my leaders in terms of what we call leadership. Then the next one was to issue appointment letters that came with KPIs. So the KPI will say that, okay, so when you do this and do this and do that, that is when we say you are successful. When you don't do this and you do this, which may even be nice, but if you do anything outside of this, that one is not leadership that is successful. So bringing definitions to them. And now the next was that, okay, there must be monthly meetings where people now are able to report on what they are doing. The next level was then now to be able to translate how people are reporting into metrics, numbers, so that I can say, okay, at the end of the day, somebody can say, okay, I got 10% or I got 50%. And then we can be able to trace back and know, okay, so this is why I got 50%. It's because I didn't do my follow-ups. It is because I didn't do my evangelism. It's because I didn't do, and it's like, you'll be amazed the kind of infrastructure I have put in place after the year, so that leadership becomes clearer to everybody with a definition of what we mean by whether they are good or bad. So when I take it to the national level, what I see is that we don't really have any national definition of leadership. Leadership in Ghana is more defined in different ways. We have to have a way to sort of point to and say, because our leaders didn't do this, that, and that, we think that they are not doing what is right. Apart from that, the only way we will just have to measure is to use incidents where sometimes we forget all the good that has been done, and because of one bad, we push them out. Or where sometimes you realize that, no, what these people are doing doesn't seem to be good for us. So we better end them here before things even get way out of hand. And maybe as we go along, there are a few things that I'll talk about, and that maybe may throw more light to this. But for now, that is how maybe I may want to put it, Phoebe.
Thank you very much.
You must find a way to be able to say the bad thing in a good way. It's like, there are a lot of people who say, that is how I talk. And I say, yes, it's good to talk like that when you are at the back of the room, but in front of the room, you have to find a way to say the bad thing in a good way. Typical example is how people were sent. The Bible talks about a story that's very interesting, that 12 leaders were sent to go and check a land that they had been traveling on for years. The vision was to acquire that land. And yet when they got very close to that land, 12 leaders were sent. And 10 of the leaders came to speak the truth. They said, okay, so we saw a land that has very good things, but we saw giants on the land. In fact, in front of the giants, we looked so small. What were they saying? They were telling the truth. But you see, the truth must be told tactfully when you're a leader. You don't just bluntly just say what you have to say. No. The reason, the responsibility of leadership is to be able to flow like a thermostat, where sometimes you can be hard and soft at the same time. You can say the soft in a hard way, the hard in a soft way, considering the people who are in the room. So it's important that we begin to really master these skills. And I mean, when you Google how to talk diplomatically, it's important. I know that a lot of people say, yes, Dan Parry responded to the British and it was great. I mean, for me, to be fair, I also found it very great, but I'm saying there's tact that needs to go into conversations. Don't forget, the only reason why Ukraine and Russia are fighting is because both leaders decided not to be tactful in communication. Someone was angered because of what someone said, and it is two people that have become a reason why a whole nation must come down. So what you say matters, and how you say it really, really matters. And one of the greatest ways to communicate is to do what you say. I think it is the loudest your people will hear when you actually do what you say. And one of the things I tell people, we are not able to, maybe some way, somehow, we will find the time to do that, but there are ways to make sure that your communication, what you are saying, meets at least the listener halfway in terms of being able to perceive the person with an open mind. And that is why I put this line here as giving people the benefit of the doubt. Leaders don't just jump into action because somebody said no. Most of the time, there's room for the benefit of the doubt. So Jesus will know that, yes, this guy will betray me, and yet he will be tactful with him, allowing him in the space, but knowing very well, giving people benefit of the doubt is a high level skill of great leaders. I think as you begin to do these things, as you begin to communicate, the next level, even in communication, is how you can be tenacious. The kind of world we are in and the kind of continent we have require people who can be very firm, very, very firm, and people who can become the last man standing. Yes, sometimes it means somebody must die, and most of the time, it even means that that leader must be sacrificed. Everybody will run away, but somebody must be able to stand against or stand for what they believe in. And I think this is the time that they really need things like that. Why? We are in very unstable times. The instability is so many things. And so it's like it takes people who are tenacious to stand, and then history makes them leaders. The next one, again, maybe I'll come to what Phoebe, your question. And I think this picture speaks to it a lot, where sometimes you see that perhaps less intelligent, maybe beings are able to do things that would rather be better than what humans do. And I say take a gooder stand, because as a leader, understand that the responsibility of decision making lies with you. And sometimes it will be tough grounds where what people may not even agree to what you are saying. But in a place where you have good intentions, you have a sense of, you understand the sense of responsibility and the consequences for decision making. It is up to you to make that decision. You see, leadership is a trust. It's a trust. It's like people give you a certain trust to follow, so that they will bend to what you are calling the decisions, or to the shots that you call. And so leaders must be able to stand and make decisions. Where in this picture, for example, we've talked about plastic waste for so long. Someone must one day be able to stand and say, yes, I know that my friend's friend imports a lot of plastics, and that is how they make their daily meal. Or yes, my father has a plastic factory that has even paid my fees, but we cannot go this direction, and it has to end here. And it becomes, and I say a gooder stand, because the world is now becoming so complex that we don't have fully right decisions and we don't have fully wrong decisions. There's always some sort of middle ground where that may perhaps lean to one side, that leaders from where they stand are able to see the consequences of it all and to make that decision. A typical example again is how these betting companies are all in town these days, building big billboards all around, trying to teach our young people that betting is a good way to go. I'm not against betting, but there must be consequences. And what I'm saying here is that most of the time, the followers may not be as informed as the leader. Leaders must be informed, must know the consequences of the decisions we are taking, and so must be comfortable to take that decision knowing the consequences. But these days we find people who would rather hide the consequences and just show the good light of whatever is going on, and will then push the people to make the decision so that they don't get to make the decisions. But no, it takes a leader to make a decision. And that is why Adam did not pluck the fruit. Adam did not give the fruit to anyone to eat. But as soon as that fruit was eaten, and when God showed up on the scene, he didn't go to Eve. He went straight to Adam. Leaders matter in decision making. And I think it's a skill that we all need to learn, where sometimes we understand that there's nothing like a best decision, but there's a good and a gooder, so that when we choose the gooder, we have the people at heart in that decision making. In fact, I also think that one of the, this may be funny, but it is so true in the kind of dynamism that is happening around the world now. So many things are shifting. It takes leaders who are adaptable to be able to stand. Some way, somehow, adaptability becomes extremely important in today's leadership. The flexibility, being able to shift dimensions all of a sudden to another form of solution, even though it is not the conventional way of doing things. So if I have to open that bottle and there's no cork to use, do I still keep the bottle sitting down, waiting hours over hours just because I don't have anything to open? No, we don't have time. It's like shifting, making sure that we are adapting quickly. And a typical example again is in what is happening in Accra and most of the cities in Ghana, where these days the rains are coming down more. It means that there will definitely be a lot of flooding moving forward, and things are even going to get worse. But leaders must begin to think about how then do we adapt? Because as for the rain, it is not stopping. It is our lifestyle that needs to, something must change about us. If we still want to stay on this earth and in this country for a while, then something must change. So how then do we channel the rainwater that is even coming down into maybe a dam that will produce electricity? How do we make sure that we tap this rainwater? I remember when we were young, they used to teach us that the rainwater for house use, for domestic use. It's so funny how sometimes it can be raining and it's like almost flooding, and yet the taps at home are all off. It's like they are not working, and yet there's so much water right outside waiting to flood, you know. So adaptability, looking at the changing trends, how things are changing, how can we shift? Okay, so in this group that I'm leading, the first president who came to this group, when he came, they were doing things face to face, but the world has changed. Today I'm the group leader, but now the world has changed. There's COVID. These days we don't get to meet. Can we do things online? Yes, we can. So quickly, let us just do that. Okay, when this leader was there, maybe he used to get a lot of support from somebody. Now that support has ceased since you came in. What can I do? Maybe you can fundraise with friends. So always looking for ways to adapt, always looking for ways. It's one of the key things that leaders ought to be doing. And one of the most important things I think leaders also ought to know how to do is problem solving. And I say problem solving because, you see, for all of us on this call, the people we see and would rather place value on as the people we call leaders are people who are solving problems. In fact, when somebody is a leader that you so much respect, and all of a sudden you realize that the person is not solving problems, there's a high tendency to draw back and say, oh no, he's no more a leader. Most of the time we measure the leadership, the skill. We would use problem solving to measure that skill. So one of the things we have to know how to do is how to solve problems. And I put up this picture just to tell a story of something that I began to do when the coronavirus issue broke. I spoke to a few friends that, Charlie, we can do something to give just as a way of also giving back to, or at least our part of the things that are happening. So during the lockdown, I spoke to two friends let's try and then bring the world together, get everybody in different countries to write stories about their coronavirus experience, their inspirational, experiences. And we started with 2 people. All of a sudden, by the time I realized we're about 14, and then we moved to about 23. And I was leading this team, people from different parts of the world, people with different backgrounds. Imagine that, as a Ghanaian, people who have not even heard about the country Ghana before, having a Ghanaian who becomes the chair to this whole project. And as we went along and we began to collect the stories, I saw how, from my small room in Accra, all of a sudden I had access to almost every country in the world through people who were working so willingly, contributing stories, speaking stories from countries I had never heard about before. And some of the key lessons that I learned on this project is how most of the time, as a leader, you can be certain that you will not find all the answers yourself. Most of the answers are trapped in other people around you. In fact, I have come to firmly believe that we all have missing portions. Adam called Eve. He said, "This is the bone of my bone." And for me, I don't think that it is just marriage. We all have missing pieces. Sometimes what I know how to do best, you may not know. But there are things that you know so well that as soon as we piece it together, we can solve some problems around us. So there are so many missing pieces. Leaders must be okay understanding that problem solving requires even knowing who can solve the problem. So I had people who were doing websites and doing things for me for free, people who were doing designs. Everybody on this team was working as a volunteer. It didn't matter. I had people who had PhDs. Imagine somebody who has a PhD in nuclear physics, who is also Russian, reporting to, people who just have a degree or may not even have one. So what I'm saying is that the capacity to know who can solve the problem is a key thing for leaders to know. Knowing the differences in people, knowing who to call for what, understanding whose strengths can move this engine, understanding where to place who is a very important skill that leaders must know. And it will all contribute to problem solving, how you are able to solve your problems and solve them well. This is a picture, but I would put this as somebody who has taught leadership for so long, is that most of the time, and the missing piece in African leaders, and maybe leaders of other places, and I don't say this to mean leaders from other places do well, but at least they do well in this sense of being very analytical and finding ways to translate whatever we do into numbers. Because numbers tell a good story. And numbers do not lie. There's a reason why, you see, even in the Bible, there's a book called the Book of Numbers. There's the reason for numbers. It's like, some way, somehow, as we begin to lead, we must be interested in building systems. I put this picture here because, you see, if the man was not there, but they had maybe a horse, and then they had this one hanged on to a horse, at least the man won't have to do much, but just to sit in the cart and then begin to think about the numbers. Okay, so how long can this horse move? Okay, so how much can I put on this one? It's like now he can keep his energy for analytics. And even better, what if he didn't have a horse in front, but he had an engine? So like maybe the head of a trailer or something that can pull this, and all he has to do is to fuel it. African leaders at every level must begin to think about systems. There must be a system that will not need you to be there. That is why, as a church, right now, if you come to my church and you see the kind of spreadsheets and the things that we are working with. You think that are we trying to, is this a bank or a church? And the reason is that a system must work, and it must work quickly. Everything must be translated into numbers. It helps for people to understand and measure what they are doing. And most importantly, so that it does not always hinge on the person in front. What if he is tired? What if he falls? What if he's not there? What if he dies? So we must be interested in finding ways to make systems work. And I think that having an analytical mind will begin to shift you that direction. Find a way to make its numbers. Find a way. In my church right now, at the first Sunday after service, all leaders do reporting. There's a Google form for everyone to complete, and the Google form will translate whatever the person has done into numbers, and then we will have conversations. So all leaders sitting down, taking, and then giving feedback to leader after leader. After the first, every quarter of the year, we issue some sort of report to everyone for everyone to know exactly what they have done, the number of times they were in church, the number of times they did this, the number of times they did that. And I in fact, I've come to realize, yes, it looks very uncomfortable because Africans are not used to systems. But these are the ways to build a lasting, for whatever you are doing to be lasting, it has to be systemic. And for it to be systemic, somebody must want to be analytical. It's like you need it. You need the analytics. My church is a very small church. I have 3 people who are admins. 3 people who are admins. Why? Because if you leave things to be as they are, yes, the leader would have been very inspirational. The leader would have been very great, insightful. The leader would have been very, very empathetic. The leader would have been very, very daring, very tactful, being able to share the vision. And then one day the leader dies and everything begins to tumble down. Why? The leader was not analytic. It takes, maybe I should even change this from buying a horse, because at some point, even a horse will die. Finding a way to automate what we do. And it's so important to me right now, especially, I've led so many groups, and now that I'm leading a church, I've even come to see this more. One day I was passing by where they are building the cathedral, and I saw a statement on the ground, on a board, and it said that your brain is more important than something. I've forgotten. It's like, what just came to me was, wow, so even on this ground where they are building the national cathedral, Charlie, people are not just praying and just hoping that that building will come up. Systems must work. Someone must report to someone. Things must be done, measured. If we are going to have that cathedral that beautiful, things must be done, measured. So this is where I just want to bring, I know there are so many things that and skills, soft skills that leaders ought to have, but I thought these few things will become very important for this conversation. So I'll end it here. If we have any questions, any contributions, please, this is the time. Yes, Phoebe, go ahead.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I have a question. I think when you were talking about, I think based on the question I asked and in your explanation, some questions came up, so I just wrote it down. With all these soft skills that you have given to us, these 8 soft skills, 9, is there a way we can measure our, I don't know if to put it, I'm air quoting, leadership skills? Is there a way to measure it to see how best, as you are going on, you are maybe going according to these few soft skills? And how do you measure it? Is there a specific metric that we are supposed to use to analyze ourselves, or how do we do it?
Thank you. Very good question. I don't know how. I do mine this way. You see, my definition for leadership, like I said, I've even written a book on it. It's just so important to me personally. That definition for leadership personally for me is what becomes my driving force and becomes the way I measure who I claim to say that I have led. When somebody follows me, at the end of the journey, I expect the person to be doing amazing things. I expect them moving in a direction. The person must be able to come back to me and say, Prince, I'm so glad I met you. And Phoebe, I have a lot of stories like that. I'm so glad I met you, not because they are doing something that interests just me, no. But by doing the things that interest even me, they now find themselves. They become better people who seem to have clarity about their path. And I can use an example of my own siblings. My sister, who is right behind me, when I was finishing school, well, before I finished, I had organizations wanting me to work with them. In fact, up till today, I've never had to apply for a job. I've worked in 3 places, and they were all by invitation to work. I'll shift it to my sister, who comes right after me. The same thing, doing so many things, very, very insightful, reading, doing this. But she also was finishing school. By the time she finished, there was a company waiting. She has never had to look for a job. My brother, who comes after my sister, also, when he was in the university, yes, I was moving around the country, working with him, moving him here and there. In fact, he finished school and did his national service in his own company. Today, he's doing very well in Accra. The last one who comes after him, the last brother we have, today he has not even been to the university, but the truth is we don't even know whether he needs university or not. So it's like sometimes I look back and I see, wow, at least by drawing my siblings along the path of leader, and they know how passionate I am about this definition, that you get people to gladly do what they don't necessarily have to do, but it doesn't end there. We don't say, oh, when we all work together, we achieve the goal, so it's okay. No, it's not okay. The people who join us to achieve the goal must then begin to come to a certain sense of awareness to their own capabilities of what they can do. And for me, Phoebe, that is how I measure who I say I have led. I really don't know it. There may be other ways, but for now, for me, this is how I do it.
Thank you very much. Please, I have a follow-up question. So
Okay.
you mentioned having clarity of your path. So I want to relate this to the soft skill number 2, which is ignite a vision, or becoming a visionary. In summary, I wrote down there that you said something about when you know who you are able to find your vision, and then your vision would require certain people, then you move on. So how do you know, let's say you found who you are, and even though maybe it's not really pleasing to you, but that's the reality. That's how God has made you.
Right.
So this is who you are. How do you now carve out your vision? Is it that when the ideas come, then you just put it down? I'm asking this because I'm using myself as an example. I see myself to be a very multifaceted person. I think wherever I find myself, I can be able to function, or I can be able to do something. But I always get scared. The ideas come. So I go like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to, but I don't know how to channel it and set on that path, having a clear path. So that's why most of the time I end up doubting myself. Meanwhile, people actually see what I can do when I don't see it. So how do you know what exactly is your vision and what exactly is your path? If, for instance, there are 4 paths in front of you, how do you know which one to choose? Maybe you want to combine or something. Or sorry. Yeah.
I
How do you
understand.
know
I understand, and I'm glad you are asking this question. I'm sure you're asking this question for all of us on the call, because when I even talk about clarity, the truth is that a very few number of people come to clarity very early in their lives. Most of the time, understanding has to wait, but action must be taken. It's like you won't need to understand everything to move. All you know is that you want to move, and then understanding will catch up later on why you moved. And that is why people say that life is lived forward but understood backwards. It's so true. For most people I have encountered, who you can be sure that they are living their purpose. Like I have told and I always tell the people who are close to me, if you know anybody who is more happier than I am, please, I want to see the person, because I don't see anybody. And that is one of the marks of knowing that truly, even though you don't fully know where you are going yet, this is where you are going, or you are not lost. I don't know if it is. It's so it's like and again, there are 2 ways to do this. How do I find my path? One is to work with. That's why I'm saying take another look at my definition of leadership, and you will understand why I think this is a very important definition. Why? Because people don't have to necessarily, it's like, it is not just about the doing. They must find themselves. At the end of the day, Peter must be able to look back and say, wow, I'm glad I followed this man called Jesus. Why? I have now come to see that, okay, this is who I truly was. I was not just that person by the beach who was fishing. I was actually more. So I'm saying that leaders must come to that level of awareness. Whenever a leader is set on their path, maybe I should put it this way: anybody who is living, when you work with anybody who is living their purpose, most of the time you will find yours.
Okay.
When you begin to align with somebody, that person seems to be so certain about what they are doing. They think that is their purpose. When you work with that person for a few years, you can be certain you will find yours. That is why for every leader, you can always point to another person who was following their purpose in their lives. So you can look at Elijah, and then you can see Elisha. You can see Moses, and you can see Jacob. You can see, it's like that. As soon as you see one, there's always the other one. It's because when one person is living their purpose, once you are in an environment of purpose, it's contagious. That's what I keep telling people. Purpose is contagious. As soon as you are working with somebody who seems to be living their purpose, you will live yours. You will. That's one way. The other way is to begin to play along your strengths, because I don't want to be too biblical. You see, the Bible says your gifts will open doors. So it means that your gift is a vehicle. You are not the vehicle, it's your gift. And it means that when a person begins to play along their gifts, you can be certain their gift will take them to a place of promise. Their gifts, when you check different versions of that statement, some of the Bible versions say your gift will make room. It means that in places where there is no room, your gift can make, it's not you, it's your gift that makes the room. So, for example, Joseph is called by Pharaoh. the office that is given to Joseph did not exist until the problem came. So it was Joseph's gift that created that office for him. It was not Joseph, his gift. Your gift will open doors. It means that where there are doors that need opening, your gift, what you carry, can open the door. So it's like, that's the second way, moving along the lines of your gift, where now you begin to, as you begin to just play by your gift, you see that, okay, me, I know how to write. Let me just begin writing. Or let me write for this group. Let me write for that group. Oh, this group needs somebody to write for. Okay, let me do it. You see, I usually teach something called immersion. Immersion is when you fully put yourself in. It's like they put you in the water. Sometimes they can sprinkle water on you, which is fine. But when they dip you in water, that is immersion. And when you give immersion to what you carry, your gift, it will take you to your purpose, or it will give birth to what you call vision. It may still not be clear, but you will see yourself as somebody walking a path you belong to. And most of the time, at the tail end of that journey, you look back and say, wow, this has been me walking my vision. For most people. So I generally encourage people two ways. The easier way is just to find somebody who seems to think that they are living their purpose and go along and be helping them be in their environment, just to try to understand their thinking, what they are doing. Most certainly you will arrive in a place like that.
Thank you very
Phoebe,
much.
yeah.
Yes, I think I'll stay aside for others to ask, and I'll come back later.
All right, okay. And what I've realized, especially for me, is that when you definitely have to have reflective moments where you are beginning to piece your experiences together. They will begin to tell a story and point to you who and where you are going. For example, I have done a lot of volunteer work all my life. I've done everything concerning leadership, speaking on leadership, writing a book on leadership, doing this. Guess what? This year, when they voted me one of the 50 most influential people, they voted me for two things. They said in the place or in the space of leadership and civic society in Ghana. That's like the two things I do. I do volunteering and I do leadership. And I noticed some years ago that, wow, these two things seem to be coming up in my life always. It's like it's either I am teaching people to volunteer, or I am volunteering, or I am moving people around volunteering for a cause, or two, I'm teaching leadership. So then I began to sort of trim everything down to these two words, leadership and volunteering. Today, if somebody wants me to do anything for them and it has nothing to do with leadership and volunteering, Phoebe, it may be nice, but I have to let it go. It is not for me. So sometimes in your reflective moments, as you begin to piece these things together, it can point you in a certain direction of where you really belong. A few people usually have a tailored vision where it's very specific. And then, no, I even believe that vision is in phases. And sometimes one phase is just for the next, and then it changes. So if there are any other questions? Yes, please. Miriam.
Yes, hello, this is Miriam.
Hi, Miriam. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I listened closely to your definition of leadership, and then it got me thinking. So leadership is making people gladly. I underlined gladly because you may be a leader of a group, and then someone in particular would not like to do something gladly. In such a case, what do? Do you force the person to do what you have to do, what they have to do? From your You gave an example that you were a head of a committee, and then you had paper the next day, and then a friend of yours got to a point she wanted to opt out from this meeting, and you had to tell her to sit till you are done with this meeting. Did you apply any force, or did you just let them have their way, or what did you do?
Thank you. Thank you so much for a very thoughtful question. You see, that is why I was talking about conviction and all those things. And most of the time, we must understand leadership from two dimensions. Sometimes it's the leader, sometimes it's the follower. And because we are talking about leadership here, this is for me what leadership is. When we are talking about followership, we'll begin to talk about how followers can also position themselves better to really get the best from leaders. So, for example, we know the story of Jesus Christ and how somebody like the betrayer, Judas, did not fall in line. Do we say that Jesus Christ failed? No. From the point of followership, Judas did not catch the goal, but the goal of leadership is to make people gladly do what they don't necessarily want to do. Sometimes in 1, 2, 3 incidents, you may have to bulldoze your way through. It's part today, I understand and have come to accept that it's part of leadership, especially in a place where followers don't have all the information to make a decision yet. Sometimes it must be made for them because the leader has every information. So this was one incident where the leader had to insist so that what we needed to do will be done. And from this decision, you see, I still made her sit to do this. Why did she want to go and study? Because she thinks that, okay, when I study, I'll get good results. And why does she need good results? When I get good results, maybe I'll get a good job. The truth is that if that lady was going to follow my leadership, she will finish school and may not necessarily look for work. The work will find her. So it's like at the end of the day, it may begin with people who may not understand. And because you don't understand, you may want to take a stand. But as you go along, people must rise to a certain level of understanding. It's a burden of leadership. Not everybody will. It will still not change the case. The burden of leadership is that people must still come to understand as you go up that, oh, this is actually helping me. And when they end the journey, they must find themselves. So I really encourage people these days, especially in places that I lead, that I beg you, if you think that you do not really understand what I'm still trying to do, please kindly resign and I'll have no problem with you. I'm really, really encouraging people, or maybe you don't understand yet. Don't worry. It will take a time, or it will get to a point where you will understand these things. And so for now, maybe you can resign. But if not, yes, 1, 2, 3, there are incidents that sometimes you have to be firm and make sure that it goes through. But on the whole journey, the person would have to feel a sense of gladness to do what they may not necessarily want to do. That is how they get to be led. Being led is like when, okay, the person doesn't really want to do, but at least the person gives you that honor of being able to change their decisions. I really don't know if this answers your question, Miriam.
Well, listening very closely to what you said, it does. And thank you for that.
Thank you too. Lawrence.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, mine is about the definition of leadership also. Like, I'm wondering how best will you make your followers do what they really don't want to do? How best will they do that? Because most of the times you know whether you are inspiring them or not. You know whether they are really getting something from you to change their lives. So how best will you do that? Are you going to confront them one on one, or there are other ways to get to know whether you are actually inspiring them to be the best version of themselves.
Okay. Thank you for the question. You see, when your goal as a leader, it's not just to get people to do activity and go home. But if your goal is to make sure that at the end of the day, they must find themselves, when that is at the back of your mind, it's like it begins to speak to whatever you do for them. And sometimes it means helping them with decisions that have nothing to do with what you are building. So for me, everybody who becomes more like somebody who permits me the privilege to lead them, all of them become people that I must find a way intentionally to make them better. You'll be shocked. I can pull a spreadsheet here and show you names of people, and even for my church, like names of people where they seem to be going, some of them who want to go to school, some who are building businesses, some who are working for somebody, and how I'm beginning to now think about how they can move to their next level. So, okay, this lady has been working for too long for somebody. Maybe it's a good time for her to begin thinking about where she wants to, or whether she wants to begin her own journey. And so it's like you begin to, everything they do becomes important to you because your leadership has moved away from just doing something to, at the end of the day, these people must tell me the same story. Prince, I am glad that I met you. That's the challenge of leadership. And so, Florence, it's like, again, when it's at the back of your mind that they must become extremely great. Today, I have people who are older than me who came to me and said, Prince, I just want to learn from you. And today they are telling me the same stories. Prince, I'm glad that we met because of you, blah, 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 blah. And even for the person who I also followed, it's the same thing. I'm so happy and I'm so glad that I met him. Why? From following him and doing, it was as if I was doing things for him. But at the end of the day, I found myself. And I'm saying if people's finding themselves is important to you, you begin to lead them more than the usual. You care about the decisions they make. You care about where they are going. You care about where they stay. You care about whatever they do. And they catch it. At least when they are people who are thoughtful, they begin to understand that, wow, this person before me is doing what usually people who lead would not do. And sometimes it will cost you. And again, I always tell people there's a cost to leadership. And so it's all part. Sometimes you must pay fees. Sometimes you must visit people who are very stubborn. Sometimes you must call people over and over and over again who have not picked your call for 2 weeks. And yet when you pick your call, you still don't have a right to say, but I've been calling you, why have you not? And all you can say is, hi, it's so great to still to hear from you. It's like you become a father to them. Maybe I can say that. Florence, I hope you understand. So they begin to catch it.
Yeah.
They begin to catch it, that you really care. I guess that's what I'm just trying to say. At the end of the day, as you begin to do these things, people begin to understand that you really care. It is not just about the work, you care.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Please, if there are any other questions. If there are any other questions. And understand that, like I'm saying, not everybody wants to be led. It's okay. For some people, it will take a while for them to catch up on what you are trying to do for them. I still have, sometimes when I tell people this, they are shocked because they think there's so much demand on my time. And yet there are people that me too. When I call them every day, they never pick. I send a message, they don't respond. And I have not stopped doing that for months, for years. Why? I care. And they are under my leadership. I wish they are not in an environment where I can say, okay, resign. If they were, I'll tell them to resign. But once they are not, I also don't have a right to just say, okay, because you are Judas and you will betray me, don't come into this house again. No, they still must be cared for. Miriam, please go ahead.
So before we started learning what leadership is and all, you made a statement, I wrote it down. You said you must always look like you have reached your future before you actually get there.
Yes.
I want to know if it means faking it before you make it, or
okay, so thank you for the question. One of the firm beliefs I have is that I think, and I only think, that anticipation is the highest form of wisdom. Being able to know tomorrow before it happens is wisdom, and preparing for it. Why do I say that? See, there's a reason why. I'm sorry that I have to be this religious, Ernest. You see, anticipation is being able to sort of forecast to know that tomorrow something is happening or coming.
okay.
And so I must prepare today. It's the only reason why Jesus Christ came. He came because of anticipation. Like before you die, you must do something. And so, but I think that we must bring it down home to our own lives. If I am in the university, I must know that one day, definitely I'm going to look for a job. You see, I don't even need university to find a job.
Okay.
And we can actually go into that and know that you don't need university to have a job. But if you are going to school because you think a job is important to you, then why don't you begin from the job and work it backwards? So that, for example, when I'm teaching career, when I'm doing a career coaching, I tell people the kind of job you're looking for, just go to Google and find the job description for the job you're looking for. Pull out that description, put it on a Word document, and line by line, begin to find opportunities on campus that will make you do the job description. So I want to be maybe a coordinator of an NGO. The job description I found online says that as a coordinator, you must know how to write proposals. It means that on campus, before I finish school, I must write a proposal some way, somehow. My proposal must reach somebody, so that when I go for an interview, I can also say that, oh, I've written a proposal before. I hope you understand.
Yes,
So
yes.
like, you are working your end, the anticipated, and you are working it backwards.
Okay.
So it may not necessarily be the very long term, but at least the immediate goals that are ahead of you that you know that you are going to walk into. You can look at the end and then begin to work it backwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Frank.
You're welcome. And please, if there are any more questions. Miriam, is that another question?
No, please.
Okay.
No, please.
All right. Okay. If there are no questions, maybe this is a good time, Ernest, to hand over.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Prince. Personally, I've made a lot of notes myself and I've learned a lot. And I must say, I really appreciate your time, your wisdom, your knowledge, and also how you were able to make it very practical for each and every person to understand, and for your patience in answering our questions. Thank you so much. And we are very, very happy and very, very grateful and honored as well to have you. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is all mine, Ernest. Thank you too. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. So then we would end the meeting shortly. And I also want to thank all the participants for your time and patience. And we'll communicate on the page. So please, you can have some rest now. And thank you so much. And thanks to everybody for your time. I really appreciate it. Please do have a very wonderful evening. Thank you.
You too, Ernest. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, too.